Here we go. Respect for the independent web of all existence, of which we are a part. This is the Unitarian Universalist seventh principle. Pantheism is the doctrine that identifies God with the universe. This little recognized concept is surprisingly compatible with a diversity of religious ideas. Please join me and share your thoughts as we try to define pantheism. Look at its history and relate it to our faiths. To define pantheism, let's start with the dictionary. Pantheism, a doctrine that the universe conceived of as a whole is God. The doctrine that there is no God, but the combined forces and laws that are manifested in the existing universe. Or secondly, the worship of gods of different creeds, cults, or peoples indifferently. Also, toleration of worship of all gods as a certain period in the Roman Empire. Simply said, a doctrine that identifies God with the universe, or regards the universe as a manifestation of God. It's derived from the Greek pan, meaning all or everything, and theos, meaning God, divine. Pantheism is a belief that reality is identical with divinity, or that all things compose an all-encompassing, immanent God. Pantheist belief does not recognize a distinct personal deity. Related terms are ecosmism, panentheism, monism, and animism. Ecosmism. It's a theory. Ecosmism is the in contrast to pantheism, denies the reality of the universe, seeing it as ultimately illusionary. The prefix a in Greek means negation, like un in English, and only the infinite, unmanifest, absolute as real. Conceptual versions of ecosmism are found in Eastern and Western philosophies. Panentheism versus pantheism. Panentheism, meaning all in God, is a belief that the divine pervades and interpenetrates every part of the universe and also extends beyond time and space. The term was coined to distinguish ideas about the reality of God and the universe from pantheism. Unlike pantheism, which holds that the divine and the universe are identical. Pantheism maintains an ontological distinction between the divine and the non-divine, and the significance of both. In pantheism, God is viewed as the soul of the universe, while pantheism asserts that all is God. Pantheism claims that God is greater than the universe. Some versions of pantheism suggest that the universe is nothing more than the manifestation of God. In addition, some forms indicate that the universe is contained within God, like in the Kabbalah concept of Tzimtzum. In my opinion, the differences are semantic, but these are the distinctions philosophers debate and write great tomes about. Monism attributes oneness or singleness to a concept, e.g., existence. The concept of is often expressed in opposition to dualist views like body and soul or man and God. Animism, the attribution of the soul to plants, inanimate objects, and natural phenomena. The belief in a supernatural power that organizes and animates the material universe. All objects, places, and creatures have spirit. This belief is not necessarily, but can be pantheism. If an animist belief system includes all things, if they are all connected and together constitute the divine, then that animism is pantheism. If some things are not included, or if objects are separate from the spirit that inhabit them, or if these are each seen as separate gods, then it is not pantheism. A brief history of pantheism. The first known use of the term pantheism was in Latin, pantheismus, by the English mathematician Joseph Raphson in his work De Spatio Reale su Ente Infinito, published in 1697. Although the word has not been found before in translation or Raphson's work in 1702, the concept is much older than that. Pantheistic tendencies existed in a number of early Gnostic groups, with pantheistic thought appearing throughout the Middle Ages. In the West, pantheism was formalized as a separate theology and philosophy based on the work of Spinoza. In the Pantheismus work entitled Ethics, Spinoza wrote the last indisputable Latin masterpiece, and one in which the refined concepts of medieval philosophy are finally turned against themselves and destroyed entirely. In particular, he opposed René Descartes' famous mind-body dualism, the theory that the body and the spirit are separate. Spinoza held the monist view that the two are the same. The monism is a fundamental part of his philosophy. Joseph Raphson, in 1697's book De Spatio Reale Su et Infinito, where he refers to the pantheisms of Spinoza and others. It was subsequently translated into English as Pantheism in 1702. John Toland, Irish writer, in his work in 1705, Socinianism, truly stated by a pantheist. Toland was influenced by Spinoza, Brúnn, and Raphson. Like Raphson, he used the term pantheist and Spinozist interchangeably. In 1720, he wrote that Pantheisticon, or the form of celebrating an Socratic society in Latin, envisioning a pantheist society that believed all things in the world are one, and one is all in all things. What is all in all things is God, eternal and immense, neither born nor ever to perish. '18th century English theologian Daniel Waterland defined pantheism this way: it supposes God and nature, or God and the whole universe, to be one and the same substance, one universe being in so much the man's souls are only modifications of the divine substance. German theologian Julius Wagner defined pantheism as a belief that God and the world established by God are one and the same. Between 1785 and 89, a major controversy about Spinoza's philosophy arose between the German philosophers Friedrich Heinrich Jacobi, a critic, and Moses Mendelssohn, a defender, known in German as Pantheismusstreit, pantheism controversy. It helped spread pantheism to many German thinkers. A 1780 conversation with the German dramatic Gotthold Ephraim Lessing led Jacobi to the protracted study of Spinoza's works. Lessing stated that he knew no other philosophy than Spinozism. Jacobi's Über die Lehre us Spinozas, first edition 1785, second edition 1789, expressed his strenuous objection to a dogmatic system of philosophy and drew upon him the enmity of the Berlin group. Led by Mendelssohn, Jacobi claimed that Spinoza's doctrine was pure materialism, because all nature and God are said to be nothing but extended substance. This, for Jacobi, was a result of the Enlightenment rationalism, and it would finally end in absolute atheism. Mendelssohn disagreed with Jacobi, saying that pantheism shared more characteristics of theism than atheism. The entire issue became a major intellectual and religious concern for European civilization at the time. Now, in the 20th century, in a letter written to Eduard Busching on the 25th of October, 1929, after Busching sent Albert Einstein a copy of his book, Es gibt kein Gott, There is no God, Einstein wrote, "We followers of Spinoza see our God in the wonderful order and lawfulness of all that exists and is its soul, bestätigt as it reveals itself in man and animal." According to Einstein, the book only dealt with the concept of a personal God and not the impersonal God of pantheism. In a letter written in 1954 to philosopher Erich Gutkind, Einstein wrote, "The word God is for me nothing more than the expression and product of human weaknesses." In another letter written in 1954, he wrote, "I do not believe in a personal God and have never denied this, but have expressed it clearly." In 2007, Dorian Sagan, the son of famous scientist and science communicator Carl Sagan, published a book entitled Dazzle Gradually, Reflections on the Nature of Nature, co-written with his mother, Lynn Margulis, in a chapter entitled Truth of My Father. He declared, "My father believed in the God of Spinoza and Einstein. God not behind nature, but as nature, equivalent to it." In a review of the 2009 film Avatar, Ross Drott, an author, described pantheism as Hollywood's religion of choice for a generation now. In 2015, Los Angeles muralist Levi Ponce was commissioned to paint luminaries of pantheism for an area in Venice, California, that received over 1 million onlookers per day. The organization that commissioned the work, the Paradise Project, is dedicated to celebrating and spreading awareness about pantheism. The mural painted depicts Albert Einstein, Alan Watts, Baruch Spinoza, Terence McKenna, Carl Jung, Carl Sagan, Emily Dickinson, Nikola Tesla, Friedrich Nietzsche, Ralph Waldo Emerson, W.E.B. Du Bois, Henry David Thoreau, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Rumi, Adi Shankara, and Lao Tzu. Some hold that pantheism is a non-religious philosophical position. To them, pantheism is a view that the universe, in the sense of the totality of all existence, and God are identical, implying a denial of the personality and transcendence of God. But pantheism is a philosophy that does not need to be the whole of one's religious view. Pantheistic views can exist alongside panentheism, polytheism, monotheistic, and atheistic ones. Many traditional and folk religions, including African traditions, religions, and Native American religions, can be seen as pantheistic or a mix of pantheism and other doctrines, such as polytheism and animism. 19th century European theologians also considered ancient Egyptian religion to contain pantheistic elements and pointed to Egyptian philosophy as a source of Greek pantheism. The Stoics were pantheists beginning with Xenophon and culminating with the emperor-philosopher Marcus Aurelius during the pre-Christian Roman Empire. Ideas resembling pantheism existed in East-South Asia religions, notably Sikhism, Hindu, Confucius, and Taoism. The early Taoists and Laozi and Zhuangzi is also sometimes considered pantheistic. Much Hindu thought and consequently Buddhist philosophy is highly characterized with panentheism and pantheism. For example, the ancient Hindu philosophy of Advaita, non-dualism, is similar to pantheism. Kyodonism and Won Buddhism, which arose in the Joseon dynasty of Korea, are also considered pantheistic. Although pantheism is mentioned in a papal encyclical in 2009 and a statement on New Year's Day in 2010, where the Pope is criticizing pantheism for denying the superiority of humans over nature and sees the source of man's salvation in nature. Many Christians find pantheism in biblical teaching. Like the kingdom of God is what you and God holds all things together. The kingdom of God is within you, and God holds all things together. In the late 20th century, some declared that pantheism was an underlying theology of neo-paganism, and pantheism began forming organizations devoted specifically to pantheism and treating it as a separate religion. The Church of All Worlds, an American neo-pagan religious group founded in 1961, not to revive an ancient belief system, but to create one based on ideology that embraced self-actualization concepts and philosophy found in modern literature, including science fiction. The CAW, that's Church of All Worlds, stated mission is to evolve a network of information, mythology, and experience that provides a context and stimulus of reawakening Gaia and reuniting their children through tribal community, dedicated to responsible stewardship and evolving consciousness. Thou art God, I am God, all that rocks is God. Quote from Robert A. Heinlein's Stranger in a Strange Land.